host of Talking Bollocks. Yes, it's me. I am back. Hello. Welcome to Talking Bollocks. I am your host, Howard Smith, and this is a Christmas. Is it a Christmas special? Yeah, it's sort of a rewired ... or rather hardwired ... to self-destruct special. But it's kind of a Christmas podcast special as well. This is going to be coming to you in two parts, and got a number of special guests coming up. So I have spoken to lots of people about Hardwired. Some of the conversations stay strictly kind of talking about the album. Others stray into all sorts of different areas. I think Malcolm Doman and I managed to cover quite a few topics as well as Metallica. So there's all sorts of little bits and pieces for you to listen to. But let's start with the usual intro. My name is Howard Smith. I am the lead singer of a rebooted thrash band Acid Rain. And look, do you know what? Fuck it. You're here, you know. I just can't be arsed with that. And let me give you a little window into the world of why I can't be arsed with that. I went to switch my laptop on to record this podcast, and I got the blue screen of death. Yes, this laptop is only 2 years old. Some of you who've and that is as far as I got before, yes, you've guessed it, the laptop crashed again. So I've been able to recover that fascinating first part of the podcast. And I just thought, yeah, fucking hell, I'm going to put this in here. I'm not going to spare you any of my grief. This is really turning into a fucking... not a chore, because it's never a chore. You lovely, lovely people. But it is turning into something that is going to lead me into smashing something very fucking soon. Because if there's one thing that tries my patience very fucking quickly, it is IT. But anyway, so there you go. That is my that's my current scenario with the technology. But anyway, technology aside, everything else aside, what has been happening in the world of thrash, nay, heavy metal since we last spoke? Well, since we last spoke, the band that I front, Acid Rain, played a Christmas show in Bridgend, which was excellent. We ticketed that ourselves, which is something we're not going to be doing again because that was a massive pain in the arse, I have to say. But, we did it. We have actually did it. We tried it. And, look, don't get me wrong, it worked out okay, but it was still a fucking huge pain in the arse, I've got to be honest with you. So, such is life. But it was great fun. We're looking into the new year. We got stuff lined up. Playing Gravesend in January. It's everyone's dream, isn't it? So I can tick off Nuneaton and Gravesend and my heavy metal cities that must be trashed. Fucking hell. Nuneaton, of course, as it's as now know. I'm gonna have to try and think of a stupid name for Gravesend, although Gravesend seems to be pretty much stupid on its own. So what else has been going? This was quite amusing. What's her name? This is terrible. Miss Janssen, who is vocalist with. This is terrible. This is fucking terrible. Okay, it's Floor Jansen. I can't remember which band she's in actually, but they're all pretty much the same, aren't they? Just like gothic, grandiose metal with a female vocalist going over the top, something like that. That's incredibly reductive, isn't it? Yeah, that's me basically just being an ignorant cunt. There's no other way of putting that. But anyway, I thought this was really funny. I kept this quote of hers. Her comments about Slayer in a recent Metal Hammer interview were a regular light-hearted feature, The Metal Test, in which she was asked to name the most metal album she ever owned, and she said, I mainly listen to metal, so they are all metal albums, but the most metal, some would say Slayer, but I think they're a dreadful band, unbelievably boring, terrible. Apparently it's not metal to say that, but it's a personal opinion. And I just thought, that's really cool. That is really cool. Somebody just going, hey, it's my opinion. Tough shit, fuckos. You know, that is my, rather than, you know, the usual, everyone trying to avoid any kind of controversy whatsoever. So, I cut and pasted those, that quote into my notes to use. And then, of course, the internet being the internet, things rumbled on. Until, basically, she had to address it because she got loads of people slagging her off. So her response to that was, apparently I unleashed the fury upon Metal Earth when I was asked a question about the most metal albums I own. Thinking Slayer's music is not my thing doesn't mean I don't respect the band for what they are and what they've done. I just won't play it. As I can imagine, they won't listen to my music either, for that matter. The reactions this has triggered online saddens me. Well, it saddens us all, Floor. We are all entitled to our own opinion. We fucking are, yes. But this sentence about my metal albums was put out of context, blown up, and used for pathetic shock purposes. Yeah, it was used for clickbait, basically. Does that mean I need to keep my mouth shut next time? No. Does it mean I need to be offended by so many whom I didn't offend? No. I don't like Slayer. Shall we get over that now? Classy. Very, very fucking classy. Floor Jansen, loving your work. And she's absolutely right. And of course that statement about Slayer got lifted and then used as clickbait, you know, singer Slayer. Of course she wasn't. It's a light-hearted feature, Jesus Christ. I mean, you know, I am not I am certainly the person to be defending someone's right to be completely honest about what they think of a band, because let's face it, that's pretty much what I do all the time. Yeah, I've got a big fucking mouth, and I believe it's big mouths need to stick up for big mouths. So this is this big mouth sticking up for, not that she's got a big mouth, that she was being big mouth. It was just a question in an interview, you know. She happened to drop Slayer's name in a not very positive light. So fucking what? Let's all move on. I bet the band couldn't give a shit. Speaking of bands not giving a shit. Yeah, okay. The other thing I've done since I spoke to you last, guys, was I went to see the Back to the Roots tour. Only one gig in the UK. Living in London, I got to see it, which is, again, you know, I lucky for me. So I went to see Max and Igor play Return to Roots. Now, it started and Roots came in and the place went fucking mental. The other thing I should add is that they came on 10 minutes late and there didn't appear to be any technical issues. There was no one running around. They just came on stage 10 minutes late. I'll get to why that is relevant. So, they came on and it was like fucking hell. The crowd went mental. I mean properly mental. It was unbelievable. People were crowd surfing from the mixing desk. You know, it was just ridiculous, and it was great to see. And straight away I was like, oh man, this is fucking awesome. And then as the set progressed, something became quite obvious, and that was that Max Cavalera wasn't all there. Now, I haven't been online and said, oh, fucking hell, Max has lost it. No, it was one show, okay? And you never know when you see one show, and I know, speaking personally, when you see one show, you don't know what's going on. He might have been food poisoning and had to drag his ass on stage. You never know about these things. If I didn't know that Max was a recovered alcoholic, and, you know, so basically doesn't do drink and drugs, that he was clean, that he's sober. If I didn't know that, I would have sworn that he was drunk. He reminded me of, it was like watching Ozzy barrel around on stage with a guitar hanging around his neck. And believe you me, if I'd worn a necklace that night, I would have probably played with my necklace more than Max played his guitar. When Mark Rizzo was doing solos, all you could hear was bass and drums. So the guitar seemed to be like some sort of fashion ornament. He was just bobbling around the stage, seemed more bothered about just trying to get people shouting along to choruses, but also just fucking anywhere. And it was just a really, really, it became quite a depressing sight, to the extent that the minute they finished playing the album, I left. I didn't want to see any more. I knew that I'd heard they finished with a bunch of covers, and I thought, well, you know, you can do piss poor versions of your own songs, that's fine, but if you're going to do piss poor versions of other people's, I'm off. Mark Rizzo was fucking amazing, to the extent that I tweeted him the day after, and I just said, you saved that show last night, thank you. That was all. Igor was awesome, and seriously, Max was just sort of stumbling around stage. He seemed to be looking at the other members for their approval. It was just, seriously, it just so looked like he was drunk. I mean, it really, really did. And I'm not saying he was, because I don't know. And like I said, he might have been ill or anything. But they came on stage 10 minutes late. There were no technical issues, and he really wasn't at the races whatsoever. And like I said, completely turned down out front, and more of a cheerleader wearing a guitar than anything else. And as soon as I left, I started getting tweets from people who were there, who knew I was there, and started tweeting saying, fucking hell, Jesus Christ, did you see that? So it's not just me, guys. It's not me just going with a fucking ludicrously critical eye or anything like that, because I wouldn't. And like I said, I don't want to unload when I don't know what's going on. And also, if there is something going on, then it needs to be looked at. And, you know, although they've just announced a North American tour, so if Max is going through anything at the moment, I doubt they'd be announcing a North American tour. So maybe it was just an off night, but it was one hell of a fucking off night. It was an embarrassment, and I wouldn't want to go and see Max doing anything again if the performance was going to be anything like that. If that is his general performance level now, and he's not going through anything or having any problems on the road, then stop. That's my advice. Stop soon, please. So anyway, I shall speak no more of this. The other thing I will say is actually patches. Remember them patches, little square patches? Yeah. Now I know this is Max and Igor's chance to make a bit of money out of merch, but £10 for a fucking little square patch? No, not happening. Not in this world or any other parallel universe is £10 for a fucking patch a sensible price. That is absolutely ridiculous. Please. So moving on. Anybody remember Watchtower? Anyone? Watchtower, one of the absolute pioneers of technical metal. Fucking absolutely awesome band. Were around way back in the day, before Dream Theater and everyone else. They basically invented math metal, I guess. It should be called maths metal. Leaving the S off really annoys me. Americans refer to it as math. Do the math. No, do the maths. Do the maths. It's maths. Okay? Anyway, they invented maths metal, which I shall call it from now on. And they're awesome. And they brought out a new EP. It's called Concepts of Math Book 1. Okay, I'm going to call it Concepts of Maths, but it's not. Book 1, very cool EP. I suggest you go download it, find it. They've got all sorts of bits and pieces. There's a Facebook page for the band, which seems to be quite active as well. So get stuck in there. What else has been going on? Mustaine's comments on Hardwired, very cool. I mean, you're gonna be sick to death of hearing about that album very, very soon. But in all seriousness, have a listen. Well, not to the album, but obviously to the rest of the podcast. But Mustaine saying, it sounds like a good one. Sounds, they're really pleased with it. It's getting good reviews, and sonically it sounds pretty cool. And it's been 8 years since they did an album, so I'm really pleased that they're happy with it. And I was like, wow. Yet again, this will be another major news story where Dave Mustaine, nice about Metallica, and then everybody just posts underneath about what a cunt he is. Although seeing him talk about Megadeth beer and what he wanted from the beer and all that, from, again, I repeat, somebody who claims to be sober, or literally has at some point in their life claimed to be sober. And I've mentioned this before about his couple of glasses of wine in his autobiography that he mentions. But seriously, I just think it's a bit weird. I really do. That, however, is not as weird as something I received. Somebody obviously thought I should see it immediately. And that was this idea that Megadeth have had. And basically, you can go and camp in Dave Mustaine's garden. $5,500 each. You get to camp in his garden, and then there's various other tiers whereby you get to campfire stories, Megadeth campfire stories. Okay, could this get any more fucking bizarre? Right, you're going to hand over $5,500 to go and camp in Dave Mustaine's garden, and then at night you're going to sit round the fire while he tells Megadeth stories, old war stories from back in the day, campfire stories. I mean, it just sounds cheesy as fuck. It really does. It really does. And I thought seeing Metallica walking around a supermarket fucking about was a bit, to be honest, was a bit of a low point. I was thinking like, oh my god, this is fucking shit. Although since having heard an interview with Hetfield on the Joe Rogan podcast, I kind of get where they're coming from. They want to do something a little bit different for the promotion for this, but it was just a bit, really? But that's nothing compared to Dave Mustaine wanting $5,500 so you can come down. And let's face it, ultimately, he is going to end up shooting at you because he is going to think, he's going to forget that he's taken $5,500 off everybody, and that he's given permission. He's going to wake up in the morning, maybe a bit hungover, maybe not, maybe having had some perfectly legal prescription drugs the previous night. He will just be looking out of his window, and maybe not. He'll be looking out of his window, see a load of tents, and go, "Fuck, man!" He's suddenly turned into like somebody from the Deep South. "Fuck, man! Get these motherfuckers off my lawn!" So, tents sell. And who's buying? Megadeth fans. I'm going to have some fun with this. I really am. Oh, fuck. I should have actually thought of this before. How many times have I said this over the years of a podcast? I should have thought of this before I started recording. That's going to be written on this podcast's grave. I should have thought this out before I started. But I'm just thinking. Fucking hell. Rust in peace. You can rust in a tent in his back garden. Tent sell. Who's buying? Megadeth fans. So far, so good. So in Dave's back garden, it's not really working, is it? I'm gonna have to have a bit of a think about Tent Collider. No, it's still not working. Okay, right. Let's get the first interview up. I'm going to pretty much do these in the order I did them, actually. Which means first up is Acid Reign guitarist and Metallica fan Paul Chanter. So with me now is Paul Chanter from Acid Reign. Hello, Paul.
Hello. That's my jolly "we're recording now" voice, aren't we?
Yeah, that's the voice that the listeners have come to know and love.
Hi.
Hi, kids. Ooh, get the gold.
Yeah.
So
a bizarre Mid-Atlantic voice.
Yeah.
Fun times on Talking Bollocks.
Yeah. Hey guys. H from Acid Reign here, just telling you about the new album.
Yeah, right.
yeah, like that's going to happen in someone's lifetime. So, as we know, this is a Hardwired special. I won't keep the first one that I've done is Joel Diath, who's the label manager for Music for Nations. I did that at Sony today.
Oh, cool.
I'll tell you what else I was doing there once we finish this. But anyway, This is the Hardwired Special, and I've already done my opinion, although I'm sure we will get a chance to discuss, as it were.
Just say it all again.
Well, no. Look, this is. I'm interested in your opinion, and the whole point of this podcast is to get people's varying opinions. People who like it, people who don't like it, people who are meh, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to find out where you are on that scale. So, I mean, you are obviously, you have been a massive Metallica fan for as long as I've known you. So,
yeah.
How do you feel about Hardwired ... and Business is Good?
It's not that bad. Come on.
No, it's not that bad, but it just makes me laugh. I mean, Mustaine's got to be looking at that going, for fuck's sake!
Cheeky cunt.
Yeah, can I not do anything?
Yeah.
And then there's that bit in Am I Savage where James Hetfield is clearly taking a piss out of Dave Mustaine.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, because I don't listen to Megadeth at all.
No, you don't. Okay.
Push wasps up my ass.
And well, yeah, that is your other nickname, isn't it?
What did you ask me?
I asked you, what do you think to the album?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
Well,
go on.
When I suspect most people did the same thing. Is just skip the first two because you've heard them.
Yeah.
So the first one I heard was Now That We're Dead, I think. And I thought, right, okay. And then the next one's Moth in the Flame, and you're like, all right, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then you're back to going, okay. But I'm like that with a lot of stuff.
I know.
Huh?
I said, I know.
Yeah, I can't kind of... I mean, there's obviously some things that you just kind of go, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm the same with films and stuff. Even if I watch a shit film, I'll watch it again just to, work out why it was shit.
Yeah.
And so, I did have to listen to it a few times before... Well, not a few times, about 3 times before things kind of settled in and like, right, okay. I think I told you before that the one that really just stuck out for me, just didn't do anything for me, was Murder One, because I'm not a Motorhead fan. So a song about Lemmy that I know is about Lemmy, kind of like, okay, I don't like Lemmy, I don't like Motorhead, so that immediately writes me out of doing that in any way possible. It's kind of, I can't think of the word, but it pushes people out of being able to enjoy it, I always remember an interview with Eddie Vedder where somebody asked him what Jeremy was about, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you, because people have made their own mind up about what this song is about, and if I tell you what it's about, I've immediately alienated loads of people who have a connection to that song already.
Absolutely.
So they kind of did that straight from the off by saying, this one's about Lemmy. All right, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
So, but that's just one of them, and I messaged Mark the other day because he said to me, how are you liking the album now?
How are you getting along? How are you getting along together?
Yeah, and I said that for some reason, Dream No More didn't bother me, but I've kind of got into it this week for some reason. It just kind of became the song that I'm kind of keen on listening to. So the thing is, and I've said this to you before, that you're never going to get Master of Puppets again. You're never going to get Ride the Lightning again. You're never going to get Kill 'Em All again. You're never going to get the Justice album again.
Hopefully, we're not going to get Sent Anger again either.
Well, yeah, and there's 6 albums since Master of Puppets.
Yeah,
and something like that, 6 albums, 6 or 7. And Master of Puppets was a long time ago. And if you were into a band that released the same album all the time, you wouldn't be happy. AC/DC. Yeah. But lots of people are happy with that because they know what they're going to get. It depends what kind of fan you are. If you want, I just want them to do that because I like that, then that's kind of, okay, you like that.
But what kind of fan are you? Because at the moment, I feel like there's a big, you're building up to a big excuse for it not being very good.
See, you're really not impartial, are you? You're crap at this. You really are.
No, I'm saying, I'm observing what you're saying. And saying
right.
what
no.
you're saying.
My thing is, I don't care.
You sound like
else thinks it's shit or not.
No, I know that, but you sound like you're building up to saying, blah blah blah. It's been a long time since Master of Puppets. No, you were going to go. It's been a long time since Master of Puppets. You can't expect that again. Yada yada yada. I like 6 or 7 tracks on it. Yeah, it's all right. You sound like you're building to that, and I'm just not quite sure what side of the fence that you're coming down on here, because
Well, thing is, right? I like it.
Right.
I like it. I don't like all of it, but then, like I said a minute ago, Dream No More wasn't one that I liked, but I like it this week.
Yeah.
And I remember it took me ages to get into Frayed Into Sanity because I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on there. It's all over the place. But then all of a sudden, it just right, okay, cool. And I'm like that with albums. It's like songs just don't do it. And then all of a sudden, whether your taste change or you just kind of get what the point was of that after a while, And yeah, the whole thing about Master of Puppets being a long time ago, Metallica have sounded like this for longer than they have sounded like the band that recorded Master of Puppets.
I'll agree with that. Yeah, it is definitely a heavy metal album. I mean, there haven't been a thrash band for a long time. Just because because they created thrash metal doesn't mean. And one could say that you look at the big four and you say, well, the other three are still thrash bands. Metallica aren't, but they're also one of the biggest bands on the planet. So it's. I mean, that what you were saying earlier about if you release the same album all the time. I mean, funnily enough, I was listening to Dystopia this week, which is which I'll have to inform you is the current Megadeth album.
Okay.
And it is. I mean, it's a great album. I mean, it sounds great. There's some awesome riffing on it and everything else, and it sounds like that is a contemporary piece of thrash metal, and it's really well made and it's fucking class. As is the last Anthrax album. As is Repentless, in my opinion. Yeah. But when you look at Metallica, it's like, this is nothing to do with the big four. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
it's like
they are one of the big four, whether you like it or not.
Oh, yeah, no,
but what I'm saying is thrash or nothing to do with where they came from.
No, but what I'm saying is that how far away they've moved from that. It's. Someone else said, there's Metallica and then the big three.
Yeah, I guess.
But you're right. Sorry, I did interrupt you there. You were right. They've been like this for a long time.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, you know how sad me and Mark are. So me and Mark have been talking about what this album might sound like for a long time. And I think we were pretty much right that we thought it was going to be some kind of mix between the Black Album and Death Magnetic, which is, I guess it's a little bit more load-ish than the Black Album.
Yeah.
I don't know, it depends what you but you listen to Spit Out the Bone or whatever, and that's like, okay, that's some kind of shadow of the band that made Master Puppets or something like that, and you can tell that they have leanings that way. They still like to dabble in something a little faster, but they're clearly comfortable in a certain area now. And the riffs that they come up with. I mean, I'm not going to say that Hetfield's riffs are shit because he's
a riff gore. He's a riff lord.
Yeah, pretty much. But what I will say is that in terms of each member's performance on that album, Hetfield comes out the top.
Oh, I think there's again, the big four. There's Metallica and then 3 others, and I would say not only does Hetfield come out really well on this album, I would say there's Hetfield and then there's 3 other people.
Yeah, because I mean his vocal performance on this album is one of the best he's done in terms of what he's doing vocally. Now, he's not Mike Patton, so he's not going to do anything outrageous and like, Jesus, he's really pushing it.
Yeah.
But for Hetfield, some of the stuff he does on this album, he's made some interesting choices as to what he does vocally. I'm thinking
the chorus of Halo on Fire, which doesn't even sound like Hetfield.
No, I could already name the songs that you can have a dig at. And it's not the one I was on about. It might be
all of them.
I can't remember what it is. It's either Am I Savage or Here Comes Revenge, which is a fucking terrible title. And the chorus is terrible.
Now it's funny. Now again, do you know what? You know what you were saying about? Oh, I like this song this week. I have found myself liking Here Comes Revenge. I really have, and the chorus as well.
The chorus, it's fine, but see, now this is where it gets to wanky muso things.
Yeah.
The chorus, the actual riff in the chorus, it's like, come on, Hetfield, what the fuck are you doing? You could surely come up with something better than that.
Yeah.
And just saying the word revenge is killing me or something, and then set me free. I mean, like, seriously, Moon, June, and Spoon, it came straight out of that book of rhyming. You know,
well, okay, if we're going to go down that route, there is a lot of rising on the album. There's Atlas rising, and things are rising. There's fucking rising all over the place. And
well, maybe he's got erectile dysfunction.
You never know. And I tell you what, Am I Savage? You know, Am I Savage scratching at the door? I was just howling at that. I really was. There's another lyric in there as well. There is a lot of cheese in Am I Savage? A lot of cheese.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can. I don't know. See, it's a weird one because I think, you know, the weakest lyrical point ever from Metallica was when Hetfield said, "Hey, everybody contribute on St. Anger," and the lyrics on there are fucking awful. Invisible Kid is a song that I would never listen to if I have a choice for the rest of my life.
I don't think anyone in their right mind would listen to St. Anger again.
No, if that album was edited and the snare was mixed properly, it might be bearable. But the guitars are still awful, and it's just shite.
It's therapy.
For me, that's an album that I don't listen to, but I know that they had to make it to get to the next step of Metallica. It's almost like, fine, you did it. You don't have to release that. Just skip straight on to Death Magnetic. You'll be fine. They needed to get that out.
Well, it's funny you should say. I completely and totally agree. It's funny you should say that because what you're hinting at, and it's something other people have said, is that, like you said, you know, this is who Metallica are now. This is they've been this kind of band for some time, and you know, they like these big fat grooves. They're quite clearly over the moon with the album. It's, you know, there's big grooves and all the rest of it. And you know, the criticism maybe from some people was that Death Magnetic felt a bit forced, and it felt like Metallica trying to be something they're not. But to me, I feel like it's weird. I think that's true. It's just that I prefer Death Magnetic.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you know, everybody knows about, like, Rick Rubin kind of told them to go back and listen to Master of Puppets and listen to Ride the Lightning and listen to things that they were listening to when they wrote and recorded those, to kind of get back into that mindset type thing. And this time they've kind of been let loose on their own. They're doing it, and they recorded it at HQ, I think, and, you know, they were pretty much in charge of themselves. So, you know, I mean, the thing with Metallica, I don't think you could ever say that anybody's told them what to do at any point. So they clearly do exactly what they want to do, and they wanted to do this. Fine. And it's like, if you're not happy with it, fine. You know, there's I don't know. There's big chunks of it that I do like.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a shit album. I think it could be better. Yeah. But I don't think it's shit. It's not one that I want to listen to.
Can I just say, let's get that on the poster.
It's not a shit album.
Paul Chanter, Acid Rain. It's not shit.
It's not all shit. I mean, Mark said to me that he kind of thought that disc 1 was stronger than disc 2.
Well, everyone's saying that. I mean, and disc 2 is getting hammered in some quarters, you know.
Now, see, this is where I come from, the land of shuffle, so I don't really care about disc 1 and disc 2. I kind of listened.
Oh, right. Well, okay.
Whole thing.
All right. Well, just so you know, the shitter songs you don't like, they're on disc 2.
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of they are doing what they do now. This is what they do now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's just I guess some of my frustration is coming from the fact that Moth into Flame. It's just if we, we've talked about this before, and Moth into Flame is Metallica's fight them till you can't.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I can tell with Moth into Flame, you feel a little bit like the guy that met the slutty girl, and then it all turned out to be a lie.
Yes, basically. Yeah.
And she didn't play out at all.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. It's like Moth into Flame. When I heard that, and even Mark said to me, "I'm still loving Moth into Flame." I'm like, yeah, it's very cool. It is very cool. And as soon as that kind of triple E riff starts at the beginning, I just holy shit. And then you thought the rest of the album's going to be like that, and it wasn't. And the thing is, it's a major letdown, but the rest of the album sounds like Metallica as Metallica are now. And that for me isn't such a bad thing. I know that there are people who fucking, there are bits of Load and Reload that I like, and there are bits I really don't like. What's it called? Ronnie? That's not even on my fucking iTunes. I've deleted that song because it's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. But there are some bits I like, some bits I don't. And people who hate fucking S&M, and I just think it's fucking amazing as a musical achievement type of thing.
I think it's a work of genius.
And there are some people, but there are some people who, avid Metallica fans, hardcore Metallica fans, who would say they're just as into Metallica as me, or whatever, on an equal footing, would say it's fucking sacrilegious that they would even do that. Who the fuck do they think they are?
Yeah, but fuck those guys. They're wrong.
I think it's kind of narrow-minded that you want a band to just... this is what I said to you the other day. Just because somebody popped their cherry while Master of Puppets was playing in the background, it doesn't mean that Metallica have to remake Master of Puppets over and over again for that person who popped their cherry while it was on.
Well, that's the point of this podcast. The point of this podcast is... I've seen people saying best album since Justice and stuff like that, and that just makes me go, what the fuck are you listening to? But that's why I want to speak to different people and get all of the and get everyone's because ultimately you hear what you hear. Doesn't matter, you hear what you hear. And I see some people talking about, this album or a particular song, and I just think I don't even recognise what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It didn't have the same impact as when I first listened to Death Magnetic. Yeah. Which is before it came out. It kind of leaked online, and I got a copy of it, I think.
Yeah.
Just to let everybody know, if Lars is listening. So when I first listened to that, I was like, okay, this sounds more Metallica-ish than St. Anger. It's like, thank fuck, because I was just like so worried. Yeah. And you kind of heard it, and you're like, okay. I still think That Was Just Your Life is an awesome tune. I think
absolutely,
I just love it.
Absolutely, and also, for fuck's sake, the Nightmare song.
All Nightmare Long?
Yes.
Yeah. Because when I heard that, I was like, oh, right, okay, they seem to have found their way again. Now, this one doesn't sound like they've lost their way. It sounds like
they've gone off a different way.
They're mixing things up now.
Yeah.
It's like that. To me, it just sounds like a mix between Load, maybe the Black Album, and Death Magnetic.
Oh, it's definitely more groovy and less harsh than Death Magnetic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's got to do with production and stuff, because Death Magnetic is crippled to fuck. So
no, I agree. And sonically, it sounds wonderful.
It does.
I also think Rob Trujillo's bass playing is great. At some points, he's using the fret.
He's the other one that comes out on top. Like Hetfield and him, they both kind of, they're the ones that come out on top. Lars, he's just a guy who, is in the background playing the drums now. I mean, when you listen to stuff on Justice, you think, where's that guy?
Yeah.
When you listen to Justice, you go, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
You know, like Mark said loads of times about some of the fills and stuff, or just some of the stuff he's doing on Puppets is really, people don't give him credit for it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And like now, he is the guy in the back just going, bum, tit, bum, bum, tit, bum, tit. You know, it's like,
yeah. Hang on. Yeah, and hang on. Time for a fill. That snare's going to get a pasting.
Exactly, yeah. Just, you know, you've got toms there, or, you know, just give them a quick flick round. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, just do something slightly interesting. And as for Kirk, his solos are just lazy as fuck. Lazy as fuck.
Well, I don't know. Look, I don't know about you, but when it comes to firstly about Lars, my sentiments about Lars on this album is that the drums should drive the songs, and they don't. The drums follow all of these songs.
That's a fair point.
They do not push anything. They don't drive anything. They merely it.
I mean, about the song "And Justice for All," which a major part of that song is the drum bit in it. You know, the tom bit, and then the riff follows that. So it's like the drum is driving that.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Whereas, like you said, it's just kind of trickling along behind Hetfield's riffs on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as for Kirk, I don't think it's entirely his fault, because they've gone to the extreme of him, you know, planning solos, and now it's just like no, let's get it in the moment, you know, do what you feel, man. And do you know what? I can almost, he's not dead, but I can see the ghost of Bob Rock in some of those making of videos. Sitting there, shaking his head whilst Kirk is laying down those solos, and Lars is holding up a piece of paper saying, Kirk is on fire. No, he isn't, Lars. He's fucking far from it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said to you about, you keep hearing that thing from the year and a half Life Metallica thing, Bob Rock going, let's hear the guitarist of the year's solo.
Yeah. He's in the guitar horror.
Not the guitarist of the year doing those solos. You know, what he needed to do was sit down and work out. You listen to solos on fucking Disposable Heroes or anything like that, where the solos change with the key change in the song, and the solos have got melodies of their own within the solo. Whereas this, he's just doing, right, okay, I'll just do the bluesy bends and just wow the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I don't know what I'm doing, I'll just do a fucking tremolo dive, and then we'll come out of it. Yeah, cool. Can you snip all that together? Awesome. I'm going home.
Well, I watched one of those videos, the making of, and I watched him soloing and stuff like that. And I just imagined Bob Rock sat there going, okay, so you've warmed up now. Now play me the solo.
Yeah. It's almost like you want to say to him, look, everybody else has done their homework, you know, like Lars went through however many fucking hundreds of riffs that were given to him. And you can see in some of those videos, he's got a book where he's gone through and he said this riff kind of is the kind of thing to this riff, they might go together. You know, cool, okay, so Lars has done his homework through all those fucking tapes. Hetfield has done his homework by coming up with that many riffs.
Yeah.
Rob Trujillo's done his homework by, you know, learning whatever Hetfield tells him to play. And Kirk just seems to like stroll in and right, is my wire set up? Yeah, cool, right, I'm ready to go.
But have you seen the quote from Kirk about this album? And he was asked about it, and he was like, I presented lots of ideas and blah, you know, and riffs and concept and blah blah blah, and this time round it just wasn't meant to be. And you just think...
Yeah, well, if they were on the par with his solos, then I would turn them down as well.
Harsh, because I think ultimately it's Ulrich who makes the decisions, to the extent that him and Hetfield fell out for a week during the making of this, as we both know. So I don't know. I feel a bit for him, but there you go. Anyway, look, your time is up. 25 and a half minutes we've been on here.
Fuck.
I know. We could probably do about another hour.
I'll just do another hour just bitching about Kirk Hammett, but yeah.
All right, okay. Well, look, don't hang up, because I'm going to have a chat with you afterwards. But Paul, thank you very much for your opinion on Hardwired. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So that was Paul and I having a chat about Hardwired, and as you can hear there, all sorts of various opinions, and more to come, folks, more to come. So what else has happened since last time we spoke? Acid Rain made an appearance on Speed Kill 7, motherfucker! The famous Speed Kill series comes back after 25 years away, and the band who were on Speed Kill 6, Acid Rain, are on Speed Kill 7 25 years later. I'm so proud of that, I really am. So that's out. You can get that. That's out via Music for Nations and Sony. So just go have a look for that. I think it's underoneflag.co.uk or underoneflag.com, something like that. You can find that. But what I'm leading up to is I went into Sony to do a couple of bits and pieces for their promo for that. And whilst I was there, I had a chat to the man who brought back the Music for Nations and the Speed Kills fucking brands. He's been on the podcast before. Ladies and gentlemen, my chat with Joel Diath. So you find me in the prestigious Sony offices with what's your title, Joel?
Label manager.
Label manager, Joel Diath. Is that close?
That's almost spot on. Yeah, Diath. Yeah.
Lovely, Joel. Well, it was spot on because that's exactly what you just said.
There's a little bit too much emphasis on the A, but we'll forget about that.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. So I'm here with Music for Nations label manager Joel Diath. Close, and we're not going to discuss. You're going to give me your opinion on Hardwired. Hardwired ... Hardwired ... and business is good. So I just love doing
Puntish,
that. Yeah, I love doing that. Thoughts, please.
How
Joe?
quickly did we get bored of the write your name in the Metallica logo thing on Facebook? It got very boring.
It was everywhere and then nowhere.
As soon as the first person put in Megadeth, it was like, okay, it's just enough of that now. Thanks.
Yeah. I've got to be honest. Did prefer messing about with that than listening to the album, but everyone's aware of what my opinions are.
Well, I got a few opinions, and I suppose
excellent.
Some come from.
Should we start with number one?
Some come from a Mr. Label Manager for a record label point of view, and the others come from someone who likes Metallica. My introduction to Metallica.
Can you separate those two people?
Yes.
I mean, that's close to
I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I guess from a comedian's point of view, someone who can appreciate a comedian and someone who can laugh at their jokes.
Well, or I suppose, like you say, it's like I can as a comedian watch another comedian and not enjoy it at all, but appreciate they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
So I
what the angle when you mentioned it, what I wanted to bring up was just how I thought incredibly well marketed it was.
Awesome.
And that's like an awful sort of record label thing to say, but I saw more of Metallica on this campaign than any of the others, and that's perhaps. I mean, we're talking 9 years since. Sorry,
8 years.
It's just
I'm taking my sweatshirt off and revealing my belly.
It was your fluffy belly button more than anything else that really shook me.
Right, is it? Oh wow, yeah, that's a good old chunk that is. Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's my contribution to the Sony floor.
Thank you so much.
No problem. That's for real, by the way, folks.
So 9 years after the last album.
8 years. But
8 years. But I just thought Metallica actually threw themselves really into it, and when you see artists throw themselves into things these days, and music industry these days, artists can't just go, here's our album, buy it. They have to throw themselves into it. And I was astonished by the amount they did, and they genuinely looked like they were enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Which really surprised me. So the thing that they did for Jimmy Fallon, they made themselves available for interviews, from Radio 1 Rock Show to the House of Band show. They did a similar small show in Germany. Those are things that big artists
don't tend to do.
Or
you try and convince them as a label manager to do, and you don't even get a response.
We are
considered such a stupid question.
Why should we do that? We're big enough as it is. Yeah. But they threw themselves into it, and that's hard for a band in the metal genre. And I thought it just come across. I thought the marketing was great. I thought the idea of doing all the videos and release them a day or 2 days before the release was genius. And I was just really impressed. And
do you know what? I don't disagree with any of that. I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, I think we are building to, unfortunately, what they actually released. Again,
your opinion, not mine.
Good.
Well, I I was in the pub we had just signed the record deal for the first new signing to Music for Nations in like over a decade.
Right.
And we were in the pub, and they're not a metal band, I think, as we discussed. But the
over 2 decades then.
No. Music for Nations signed some bands like about 11, 12 years ago type thing.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, well, they were doing stuff. The perhaps not so great period, so Sugar Coma and In Me and those sort of things.
Oh right, okay.
So those sort of early 2000s. But anyway, and if they listen to this, I'm sorry. But I was in the thing. The drummer from that band is a huge metalhead.
Yeah.
A huge Amon Amarth fan and all this sort of thing. So we kind of got on well. And we're sitting there drinking, sitting at the table having a little drink, celebrating them signing the record deal, and then it popped up on my newsfeed that Metallica released a new track, which was Hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
I just thought that was 2 minutes of just fun and just...
Oh, Hetfield swearing as well. And it was like, wow, fucking hell, this is awesome.
Yeah, and you can almost hear Lars having the heart attack midway through. You know, it is only 2 minutes, but you could almost hear him going, whoa, oh my God. You know, any track that you might feel he could keel over halfway through is going to be a good Metallica song. So I was really, really impressed by that. And it was fun. I was playing it to the drummer from this band that we just signed, and we got excited. So we just listened to it on repeat. And I thought, how to start a campaign. It's very hard today for a band to...
Oh, just out of nowhere. It just appeared. Loved it. Because your phone starts blowing up all of a sudden.
It's so difficult. Bowie nailed that with his album about David Bowie.
Yeah, I know. But he nailed that by writing an album about his cancer and then dying the week of release.
No, the week before. The album before.
Right, sorry. So
which absolutely came out of nowhere.
I thought that's
No.
You can only pull that off once.
I'm not talking about the Bowie marketing campaign for the more recent album.
Yeah.
That's I'm talking about the one before.
Yeah, okay,
when you're one of the biggest artists for many decades, and you release an album completely out of the blue, which no one expected. It's great. Metallica, I didn't think it quite reached that level because no one expected a Bowie album. I think everyone knew that there was going to be a Metallica album coming at some point. But that being said, don't take it away. Great start. And then Moth Into the Flame, I thought was an even better track.
Me too, totally agree.
I thought that was great. I thought that was a proper master period stomper.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great tune.
Maybe this is not a bad time to introduce my growing up period of Metallica. I mean, when I was of the age of listening to buy my own music and buying albums, it was the Load era.
Oh, I know where this is going then.
And I didn't mind Loads, and I didn't mind it. I thought Load was like a good, almost like a stoner rock record. I thought there's some big grooves on it.
Hard rock.
I thought there was more groove in your average. I thought there was more groove than most. And at the time, I was a big stoner rock fan anyway, so maybe I associated a lot of stuff. And I thought this was almost like a bit of a Load era, sort of groove-wise, but it had that sort of good pace of the Master of Puppets era. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, with you so far.
So I guess it then got to the point where they made the videos for all the songs.
Well, didn't they come out after? Oh, no.
There was another track which I wasn't as keen on.
Do you know what? This is bizarre. Atlas Rise, same here.
Not as keen on that.
Same here. So we are 3 for 3 here, Joel.
I guess where we're going to differ, not because of difference of opinion, but perhaps because you've perhaps spent a little bit more time with the album than I have.
To be fair, yeah. I mean, I got it a week early for review, and then it was out a week, and so
I have not listened to the album all the way through that much.
Well, that's not a good sign.
I'd say
it should demand it.
I would say it has more to do with the fact that I listen to music all the time, but mostly for work.
Yeah,
so
no, absolutely.
I'm not in a position where I can go, oh, I'm at home now. Oh, I'm going to listen to that Metallica record. And you're like, I'm at home now. I'm listening to Radio 4. There we go. I'm watching MasterChef. That is it. I don't listen to any more fucking music. So, but there was a few things I did want to talk about on the album that really I enjoyed, and perhaps this is a symptom of I might have enjoyed a couple of things. Not that I Didn't enjoy the rest, but do you know what? I didn't enjoy them enough for me to remember them. So there's sense to be read in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And number one, I thought the last track on the album,
Spit Out the Bone.
Spit Out the Bone.
Okay, we're going to go 4 for 4 here.
Cracker.
Brilliant.
Love that track. Video's bonkers. Just thought that to me is the best track of the album.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you know, if I was to call it a faultless marketing campaign, I would have gone with that track instead of Atlas Rise.
Although it might have piqued people's, if this is going to be a thrash album, too much, because it's certainly not. Although Metallica haven't been a thrash band for a long time, they invented it. It doesn't mean that they. The genius of Metallica is that they've kept metamorphosizing and reinventing themselves. You know, much like Madonna. But it's. I think if you not put out Atlas Rise and you'd put out Spit Out the Bone, people would have been expecting.
But then this shows
justice.
How much you've listened to the album more than I have.
Right. Okay.
Because
fair
then
enough.
I don't know. I didn't know that would be perceived as a misinterpretation.
Well, you bookend the bookend of the album. The bookends are Hardwired, Spit Out the Bone, and in between, nothing like those two songs.
Okay. Well,
but what have you liked? What have you got out of it so far?
Well, there was the horrible sort of music industry marketing point of view, which I was quite impressed by.
Yeah,
I just thought they did a really good job. I thought Q-Prime did a good job. I think the whole set has been good. They've not announced their UK tour yet, although I did see Metallica coming to the UK next year. I'm surprised they've not announced those.
I must admit, I am shocked. Really? It's almost like they've got a new album to push, you know.
But I'm just surprised they've not just announced their dates yet.
Yeah.
As in where they're playing, and I'll be fascinated to see what they do. Obviously, Reading announced their first headliner today, which was Muse. A little bit tired of Muse headlining another music festival in the UK. Obviously.
No, it's always nice to see heavy metal Coldplay getting a chance.
That's very good. Yeah, quite funny sometimes. And obviously,
mostly in my sleep.
I think they might do their own thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they'll do a London.
No,
a London stadium.
You think they'll do Wembley?
No, the Elizabeth Stadium.
Oh,
which is now called the London Stadium because it's West Ham's football ground.
Right. Okay. Well. So in other words, what you're saying is they're going to have a huge gig where there's going to be a lot of crowd trouble.
Yes. Well, so I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. All that or like a Milton Keynes. But it's been a while since a band had done a big show at Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't think it will be Reading.
But what about the album itself, though?
Okay, sorry, I got back.
No, it's all right.
So I guess
because you did preface this by saying the Load era, and I'm sure no matter how many times you listen to it, the Load similarities must have struck you.
Well, there was, because when I think of Death Magnetic and St. Angry, which is what I call it, because it makes me that, that's Metallica. Stangry. Is that Metallica trying to do something which I don't think they can actually do as well anymore, and that's why I enjoy this record. And I think this record seems to be them enjoying themselves, and I noticed that in all the promo they did and all the TV shows. They looked like they were enjoying themselves, apart from Lars, who always looked like he was going to have a cardiac arrest any moment. So I enjoyed that element because it was the band actually doing something and I think they enjoyed the Load albums. It was certainly a risk for them to do them. Mm-hmm. But I thought this one definitely represents a more Metallica, not necessarily listening to people doing the album they want to do.
Right, okay.
And maybe that has come across them enjoying it. But
again, I agree.
How boring.
No, well, true, but I've got a slightly different take on it because I agree with everything you've said. I think Death Magnetic's a better album. And I also think that, for me, Death Magnetic sounds more like Metallica. I'm not trying to get... It does sound forced. I agree with that. And it does sound like Rick Rubin came by every 2 weeks and said, throw those riffs away, more of that, less of that. But I think this album has gone too far the other way. No producer, just an engineer sat between Lars and James. I think it misses somebody above that. Because no way, if you're sat as an engineer between Lars and James, you're going to say, it's shit. Drop that, lose that. For me, it lacks a producer that turns round to Lars and James and says, That's shit.
Yeah, well, there's very few people that are listed like that.
And I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree because
so this was the guy who did.
It's Greg Fieldman. Yeah, he's worked with them before.
Yeah, he did some. He does. He's at the Reuben camp. So he's done a lot of mixing for Reuben. He does a lot of engineering for Reuben. He's a bit like Rich Costi, who started off as one of Reuben's
So he was around on Death Magnetic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Death Magnetic. It's funny you talk about Death Magnetic. So the first thing when I think of Death Magnetic is that whole controversy of the mastering.
Yeah,
squished and pushed to death. This one, it doesn't suffer as much, but there's still that clinicalness to the sound, which, it's they're getting quite a bit to the point of soullessness. I'd love to hear this on cheaper equipment. I'd love to hear this recorded by, some chappie down in the local thing. It'd be interesting to see how the other songs will be interpreted. There was that guy who, after they did, I don't know if you saw on YouTube, what he did was that he took. Well,
if you've been on, I think we're going to talk about the same thing. You can go on YouTube and you can listen to what the new songs would sound like
with the production
with the old productions. Yeah, because
still think Justice sounds so shit. I just hate the way that record sounds. No bass, but anyway.
I know, but it's amazing because it's back to back with probably their best ever sounding album, which is Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
But love them or hate them, that's Metallica.
So the other thing, so I'm not really speaking too much about the actual, the filling of the sandwich, which is all those other tracks, because like I said, I'll be honest, I'm not giving it much time. So what really got to me and was an interesting aspect, I thought, and an interesting angle in this review, was the video for Man Unkind. Right. Now, do you remember the video for Man Unkind?
I haven't watched all the videos, so you might be ahead of me.
So the Man Unkind video...
It's not the death metal one.
It's the black metal one.
Right, okay. I thought, ha ha ha, and then stop watching. Because the joke is approximately 1 minute old.
But the fascinating thing about that video is, first of all, it was done, and I forgot his name, which is awful, it's done by Bathory's original drummer, who's now a video producer anyway.
Right, okay.
And from my understanding, this is the guy who's been talking about making a video of the early black metal scene, the church burnings and mayhem and Dark Throne.
That film has gone into production.
It's gone into production. How disastrous. But anyway, so that footage was, I don't know if you're aware of this, was so similar to Mayhem's early live shows. So
right.
The guy who was performing as James, his makeup was just like Dead, who's like
right. Okay, so
the guy looked like Euronymous,
right?
And
so it's a bit of a piss take.
It's funny because is it a piss take or is it a homage?
A homage or a homage?
And I would say that because it was the guy from Bathory, I'd say it was more of a homage.
Yeah.
But what I found fascinating is you've got the world's biggest metal bands referencing black metal.
Yeah.
A genre which 15, 20 years ago was just so niche and was more known for church burnings and murders and suicides than anything else, than the music.
Yeah.
And I just, that absolutely blew my mind. And watching people's comments, this is so disrespectful, this is unbelievable. But it just made me reflect, because I've been talking to people recently. I'm a big fan of black metal. I know you're not that partial to the scene. I grew up listening to a lot of black metal, and I found that one of the last sort of movements in music, which was, I'm naturally leaning to use the words pure, but it's a horrible term because of some of black metal's leaning towards fascism. And when I use the words pure, I wouldn't that connotation to happen.
Yeah.
But it's a scene which, when it began, it felt very insular and unlike anything else. But then over time, obviously, it got more popular. But it's gotten to the point now where you have Norway's Arts Council sponsoring black metal tours. They've recently got behind Enslaved's 25th anniversary.
They're proud of it. They're not trying to shun it anymore.
We're talking about a scene that was responsible for the death of at least 5 firemen, tackling the church burnings.
Right.
A number of murders, not just of each other, but 2 homosexuals were murdered from being approached by black metal. But people who were in the black metal scene. So and here's the cherry on the cake. You got Metallica parodying, homaging a video of Mayhem, and that blew my mind because I didn't get angry, and really was I surprised? No, I wasn't surprised because I guess if it wasn't going to be Metallica, it would have been another big metal band. But because I was just seeing on Facebook Biffy Clyro played Norway the other day, and they just up in corpse paint. So you get bands that do it, but here's the biggest metal band, and I just was so fascinated by that. I was like, wow, that's it. Black metal's dead. I mean, it's just
the credibility is now it's gone, and it's mainstream now.
It's just because the internet did a good job at killing black metal. Don't worry, this isn't a black metal podcast, but I just thought that
Black Album, black metal. I don't know.
Yeah,
we're hanging in there, folks.
But I just thought that was really super fascinating.
Yeah,
and again, very clever. And I thought it was clever because it got people talking, and that video's sitting on almost 3 million streams.
Yeah,
and then and all the others are doing well, and so people are approaching this.
Well, the thing is, what they've done is, and it's quite sensible, is like you can watch. I mean, my web TV's enabled through the cinema system. I can watch the new Metallica album if I want.
Yeah.
I just go on and just play it which is fucking insane.
The band who battled Napster.
This is the band who battled Napster and said they'd never make a video. So, but times change.
There's some expensive mortgages and some art collections that need fulfilling.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And this is it. I mean, what is it that drives a band? And yourself, you've been in a band for 30 odd years. And I'm always fascinated what drives bands. And when you're in a band that gets to Metallica size, and there's some assumptions going on here. I don't know Metallica. Yeah. I don't know Peter Mensch, their
Everything
manager.
I say is an assumption.
I know Steve, who works for Q Prime in the UK, but there gets to a point where you just go, why is a band doing this album? They're not angry anymore. They're not teenagers. They're not getting bullied. They're not making this music because they're angry. They're making this music for other reasons. But what Metallica have done on this album is that they've done a very good job at convincing me they're enjoying it still. And they're enjoying this one.
Yeah.
So that for me is reason enough to go with them on this journey.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's... I come back to the fact that Metallica is, for people, it is a massive fucking business. And those 4 people, the buck stops with them. So when they go in the studio, when they're writing an album, there must be somebody above that, above those 4, that is basically what I'm saying is they had a sound. They used Greg Fieldman as a sounding board, and I think you need more than that. But by the same token, flip it again. Why didn't they use Rubin this time? Because maybe they felt that that's what they didn't want this time, because they felt that it was a bit restrictive, that they had somebody coming in doing like less of that. Whereas on this album, it was like, no, we know we like this. We're going to do this because we're going to be touring this for another fucking 5 years. And if we don't enjoy it, then we're not going to do it. And I'll be interested to see when the tour comes round again, how many songs off Death Magnetic come off it. Because, even in their touring cycles now, or their live shows now, or their live sets now, how many songs off Death Magnetic make it into the live set? And it's not that many. But that
has to be admired, hasn't it? It's got to be admired.
Not that many.
The band are making a record that they want to make. And it has to be admired.
Just because
you've got to enjoy it.
Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I can't respect it and say, hey, do you know what? Great. Just because I prefer Death Magnetic, I think All Nightmare Long, there's nothing as good as that on the new albums. I think All Nightmare Long is a wonderful song.
Nothing as good as Call of Cthulhu.
And the first thing, they'd sold out by that point. I think, definitely, No Life Till Ever. Everything after that. Well, look, Joel, as always, it's a pleasure catching up with you. And,
thanks so much for
getting your opinions.
My opinion is mildly interesting.
Well, let's see what the listeners say. Let's not prejudge it.
Apologies.
Pleasure, dude. Cheers. So there was Joel's feelings on Hardwired, from a business point of view, from a black metal point of view. Dude's got it covered. So yeah, it's you get the idea. Some of these conversations stay quite close to the subject, and some drift a little bit. So next up, after Joel, next up is somebody I've wanted to get on the podcast for a while, but I fucked up because he's sort of half of a double act, and I got the other guy from the double act on first, and the thing is, when you do that, basically that means that the other guy goes, well, fuck you then, I'm not coming on your podcast, and which was the response I got a couple of times actually. So I'm talking about Godless and Chuck from the Metal Sucks podcast. Now, unfortunately, the podcast is now finished. They did it for 3.5 years. It was weekly. I suggest if any of you haven't already been listening, and why the fuck not, then you should go and listen back to all of the podcasts they did, because they're fucking great. I mean, inspired me to put a podcast together as well, because, you know, I heard it and thought, Jesus, it can't be that hard. Only joking, guys. But it really is worth. They're really worth checking out, and I'm sure we've had Godless on here a few times. Well, and Godless was unable to make time in his busy schedule. I think he was busy digging up potatoes and helping making toys for Christmas over there in Ireland. So, but what he did do was, he only sorted out an interview with Chuck for me. I mean, how cool is that? Now, Chuck, what can I tell you about Chuck? Not a lot, because I don't really know him that well. What can I tell you about Chuck? He does a radio show on No Control Radio. He writes occasionally for Metal Injection, I think. Isn't that right, Chuck? Yeah. And so anyway, it's like he's in the room. I finally got a chance to have a chat with Chuck. I mean, we've got to do this more often, really. So I'm thinking of getting Chuck and Godless onto my podcast, because they're at the moment they have a no cast. There's nothing going on. So anyway, look, you can find Chuck and Godless everywhere. They're on Twitter, Facebook. Twitter's good fun with those guys. So yeah, you know, go find them. They're in my friends list and all the rest of it. Really good to have Chuck on the show. So this was Chuck and I having a chat. This is a Chuck chat about, well, Metallica, but we kind of go in other places too. Hey, dude.
What's going on there, bud?
Hey, it's what's going on? I'm just absolutely, totally focused on getting hold of you. That's what's going on.
Well, now you got me. What else are you going to focus on? Shit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to hang up and just wander around my house from room to room, like the children have left. And what do I do now?
Indeed.
It's great. It's great to finally get a chance to talk directly.
Indeed, yeah.
And of course, I would have introduced you as Chuck from the Metal Sucks podcast.
I know, right?
But you went and fucking changed that up on me, didn't you?
Well, you know, we got to throw curveballs every once in a while, man. That's kind of the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, Godless kind of let me in on the plan a couple of days early.
Yeah.
So there you go. In case you didn't know that, he can't be trusted.
I know. He can't keep a secret to save his life. So you know, I wouldn't expect any less though.
Yeah, cool. So do you actually have a clear plan for what happens next?
No, not really.
Cool. But that's totally my style. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, man. You know, we kind of just got to shake it up, man. You know, we've been kind of going in the same path for a good long time now, 3+ years. So it's wanted to just shake it up a little bit and see what we can do. You know, I don't know if it's going to be going into our own, trying to find another home or what, but you know, just play it by ear and see how it goes.
But that's the thing is, I think that is also long enough to build up a listenership who specifically, you know, like the dynamic of you two guys, and it does enable you to do that. You know, I mean, also, and now I'm not sure if you're going to want to answer this or not, but hey, if I don't ask, you definitely won't. Was it getting to the stage where you think, do you know what, it's a little bit not restrictive but maybe prescriptive, the whole being part of Metal Sucks, and you think, well, look, if we break away we can actually have a little bit more freedom?
Well, no, not really. I mean, because those guys, what's great is they've done nothing but good for us. I mean, we wouldn't have that broad of an audience without Metal Sucks. So, I got to give it to them. We were doing something completely different, not even doing the interviews and stuff before we started doing the Metal Sucks podcast. So, I mean, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have kind of changed it up in that respect. Right. I think it's more of we're kind of getting into playing the same game every week, and without a little bit of a break, a chance to step back and take a look at it from the outside and change it up. We were just kind of going through the motions, and it started to feel that way. And I didn't want to. That's just not the way to be. I'd rather kind of figure something out and be able to pull back and do it. I don't know if it's even a different way, but it's just a matter of re-examining everything a little bit and having a deadline every week where you got to get it in. It has to be done. It's kind of hard to be able to take that break while you're beholden to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the tough part there. So I think loosening that will make it easier for us to kind of figure out where we're going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I totally get that, and I think it's a weekly commitment, and I know, I know the kind of the man hours that I put into putting a monthly podcast together.
It's a bitch, isn't it? I mean, it's a bear. It can be. It's a lot of time investment, and not just the editing and all that stuff. And the producing of it, but just making sure you get the interviews and doing the stuff and then having the discussion and then, making sure that it all sounds good and putting it all together. That's, doing that on a weekly basis it's a job. It's a full-time job almost.
Yeah,
it really is a lot of work.
Yeah, no, well, luckily you've mentioned a few things there that I don't do, which is edit and try and make it sound good. I was going
to say it's kind of relative. I mean, if you heard the Metal Sucks podcast, it's generally okay. It's not like it's great. But,
do you know what? I'm a total nerd for podcasts. I'll listen to somebody else's podcast. I was listening to Bill Burr's podcast, and I heard him take a drink of water, and I thought, wow, it sounds so much better when he takes a drink of water on his podcast than when I take a drink of water on my podcast. You know exactly where I'm coming from, right?
It's because he's got this badass microphone, man. He's got a $700 microphone he's sitting in front of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But then I'd listen to you. I can't remember when it was, but it was probably about 6 months ago. And you were setting this interview up, and you're going like, really not proud of the quality, guys. Really, really sorry. Really, really, really sorry about this.
Oh yeah.
And then it came on, and I was like, motherfucker, that's good quality.
I forgot who that was. It was like a really bad phone connection though, or something like. Yeah, it was. It was because he was in the car. That's what it was. It was Monty Connor, not Monty Connor. Monty Pittman, who was in the car driving from Vegas or whatever.
Oh yes.
And the whole time you hear in the background, you're like, "What the hell is that?" But that's me being an audio nerd. Where that's what I do.
To be honest, I think it's I think you're being a bit hard on yourself there. Well, not hard on yourself, but I think it's professionalism. Dare we say it? I think it's absolutely.
That's pushing it,
Oh, come on! You can't do it. You can't do a weekly podcast on a big news site like Metal Sucks. And deliver it the kind of the standards you are without having some level of professionalism, some pride in your work, and look, I'm trying to pay you a compliment. Fucking take it.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. We really do take a lot of pride in it, and honestly, I have for 3+ years, and that's one of the then like I said, that's part of the reason why it's like, okay, take a step back, a little breather, figure this out, and kind of go from there. So I'm proud to have been part of Metal Sucks for as long as we have been, and those guys are still fucking awesome. So I mean, either way, I hope they find somebody great to do the podcast after us and can keep that up. But yeah, I think for us, it's just like time to freshen it up a little bit and figure out the new direction. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to ask you, because I asked Godless, how's the online begging going?
So far the begging has been okay, which is weird because all right, so with the begging thing, like as soon as we announced that we were going away from Metal Sucks, I put it out to everybody. I was like, okay, just so you know, this is what's going on. and taking a break and stuff, and immediately our begging went up.
Yeah, you got a surge.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a surge there, which is pretty good. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. That means these people really want to hear us. And they're like our number one fans. So I think those fans are going to come with us wherever we go.
Yeah, no, and I'm, I must admit, I'm not surprised by that. It was kind of weird, the last episode, because you kind of literally went, oh, by the way, we're leaving the podcast. Yeah, in about an hour and a half, in about an hour and 10, fuckers. So,
and then just did the podcast like we did normally.
Absolutely.
Like,
and you didn't even say you interviewed the guy. You interviewed the guy from like your favourite band. You didn't even mention it to him, like, dude, this is the last interview ever, or anything like that.
It's because we did that interview like a month and a half ago. So we didn't even know this was going down until this is it was one of those things like it wasn't even on the radar when we talked to Brett, from Astronoid. That's why we didn't even mention it. It's like, well, oh shit, well, sorry.
Right. In that case, if that interview was 6 weeks ago, you two did your lists of best album of the year, a good long while ago.
No, that's actually not true.
Right. But did you'd agreed on the original?
Correct. Like that was the thing. It's like, okay, so we were talking about doing an interview with the number one band. But I've had Astronaut as number one since I got that record back in April. I guess April, May, somewhere around there when Dean had posted it on Twitter from Metal Hammer or whatever. And as soon as I heard this, I was like, this is it. This is the one, and I there's no other. And was wondering if it was going to change all year long. And nothing came around to make it change. Not a there's a stuff that was contenders, but nothing was like going to hit me as hard as that one had. So it just sort of stuck with it. We both agreed, even just kind of all along, that was going to be the number one because nothing was even comparing to it yet.
Right. So, but what that does mean, and the point that the point I'm trying to make, and this fucking dreadful segue that I'm trying to build here, is that you must have known that Hardwired was not going to be your favourite album of the year, even all those weeks ago. In fact, prior to anything coming out. What are your thoughts on the new Metallica album, Hardwired ... and Business is Good?
So, I mean, Jeff, do you want to just dive right into the new record? I mean,
absolutely. Just dive straight in. First up,
the good, the bad, or the ugly? Where do we want to go with it?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just start with whatever you prefer? How about the good? Why don't we say the good?
Well, I mean, I think as far as the good on this album, I think this is one of the best sounding records that they've ever made.
Yeah.
I think as far as sonically is concerned, the mix, the drums, everything that's in here sounds as good, if not better, than the Black Album, which was by far, the pinnacle of what their sound mixing and recording can sound like. And I think this is as close to that as they could possibly get. And it really does sound great, whether it's mastered for iTunes, whether it's the LP. Like I've heard the LP, I've heard the iTunes version, and I've heard the CD version. And they are different as far as mastering, but each one is done very well for its specific format, and they do a very good job with it. So hands down, you got to give them that.
Totally agree.
The way it lays out, they're really smart about the way that they marketed this one. Obviously, to see what the sales did.
It's not it's not their first rodeo, is it? They know they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and two, they did a good job by pulling the right singles. I think they did a good job picking the singles like Moth to Flame and some of the what was the other one? The other one like the early
Atlas,
one that they
Atlas
pulled
Rise.
Yeah, okay. And I think they picked the right singles because there were three. It was the title song, the Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Yes.
Those were the 3-minute songs that were just bangers right out of the gate. Perfect selling songs for this album. That was a perfect example of what every Metallica fan wanted.
Me included. I ate that up. I fell for it. I went, wow, this is going to be fucking awesome.
And that's what everybody said. As soon as they heard those songs, they're like, this is going to be a fucking banger. It's going to be 3-minute songs. It's going to be exactly what we want. Blah, 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 blah. Death Magnetic. It was all these 9-minute songs. What the fuck, and I knew there's no way that they were gonna do it. There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got the record and I saw what it was, I was like, oh, they just disguised all of these 6-minute sort of sleepers with these 3-minute singles that they had popped out. And it's just kind of, oh, damn. And they're not bad, but a 6-minute Metallica riff, when it's the same thing over and over and again, that's the hard part. So I'm drifting into the bad while I'm talking about the good. So, but we can get into that if you want to go bad this soon. So,
well, I mean, look, I completely agree. I think sonically it's wonderful. I liked the stuff I'd heard prior to it, and I was kind of like, right, okay, this is cool. This is really good. I mean, I still think Moth into Flame is a really, really, it's a great Metallica song.
Yeah.
But it is definitely for me. It's a kind of, it's almost like a middle of the road heavy metal album with bookended by 2 fast songs.
Mm-hmm.
That are totally unrepresentative of everything else that is on there. And with this album, for me, it really is. It's kind of like, hey, do you know what? They're just a heavy metal band that happen to have a couple of fast songs. It is a heavy metal album.
Yeah.
There's no kind of nods to thrash or anything. Well, maybe with Spit Out the Bone, but again, I think that's I think that's getting it's getting great fanfare. But I just think that it wouldn't it, after you've had to trudge through the other 70 minutes to get there.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean?
But at the same time, though, if you're looking at like BPMs or if you're looking at speed and looking at things like that, I mean, it's hard to make a case for them being a thrash band after Ride the Lightning. I mean,
yeah, fair point.
Because Master was a completely different look than everything else that they had done. So I mean, if you compare like over time, like their songwriting, that's I don't know that I'm too worried about like the speed or the stuff like that. To me, it's about the depth and what they can do, and sometimes the different looks. Because if Master is the pinnacle of what Metallica could be, or Injustice is like the top end of what you want from their songwriting, it's been you just can't they haven't been able to replicate that at all.
I agree.
And I mean, I say the same thing about my personal favorite band in the world, Iron Maiden. It's the same sort of way, where they're never going to do another Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. They're never going to be able to do another album like Number of the Beast. They're never going to be able to repeat that. However, at least what we're seeing from Metallica on this record is seeing a couple of good songs, like a couple of really good songs. And I think that's more than a lot of bands at this length in their career are getting, Having Hardwired and Atlas Rise and Moth to Flame, those are some solid songs. There are some really, really solid songs. Even Death Magnetic with Cyanide, they still play that one live. And I still think there's some solid songs on Death Magnetic. So being able to put songs that can be blended into the regular repertoire is something sort of rare for a band at this stage.
Yeah, fair point. And funnily enough, leading me on to Death Magnetic or Hardwired?
Oh, as far as like which one's better?
Well, which would you prefer? Which one would you got both CDs, which one's going in the player first?
I actually kind of like Death Magnetic a little bit better as far as listenability goes.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because I'm fascinated, because I'm in the rare position of, I completely agree with you. I think this album sounds more organic. It sounds more Metallica, and Death Magnetic sounds more forced, and kind of Rick Rubin executive produced, if you like. But I prefer Death Magnetic.
Well, and that's the thing is like I feel, but I also feel like there's some really bad things about Death Magnetic too. Like Unforgiven 3 is just awful. That's just like one of the worst things that they ever just put that franchise away. We don't need that anymore. But when you get to like Broken, Beaten, Scarred, or All Nightmare Long, Nightmare Long is like one of the best songs that they've written in the past 20 years. Like, absolutely. I love that song.
I love that song. It's one of my ringtones. It's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really one of those things where I think it sort of shows you what kind of Metallica fan you are, because I think Death Magnetic is for people that are fans of And Justice for All, and Hardwired is for fans of the Black Album.
Or load and reload.
Or, well, I didn't want to go there because I don't know that there's any fans of load and reload.
I genuinely think it's for me. It revisits that kind of load reload.
Yeah, like King Nothing and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And James is giving James is definitely a great performance on the album. He's singing a little bit more, but it's back. He's singing kind of almost soulfully in some places, like Bob Rock taught him. Lyrically, for me, it's a shit show. And I love James's lyrics. I really do, and I think there's some great lyrics on Death Magnetic when, especially after everything they've been through with Saint Anger and everything else, and then but some of his lyrics on this are childish would be complimentary.
It's kind of atrocious, honestly. And I wanted to like the Lemmy tribute, but it felt so ham-handed that it was just kind of like, aces high, aces low, all the aces. Get some aces in you. Shall I say aces again? It's about as campy as it gets, man. It's like, oh, dude, because what he was great at using in the early days was good metaphor. In some cases he was speaking directly, whether he was talking about disposable heroes, but in a metaphoric way, or and I just feel like this is so literal in some cases that it just. This song is about a moth flying into a flame. Okay, all right. What does that represent? Does that represent humanity? No, it represents a moth flying into a flame. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah. Well, or even it actually if it was actually being written without any subtlety, it would be moth into fame.
Yeah. Nice.
Hey, you see what I did there? Yeah. Seriously, man. Right. Seriously, man. There's a future in this. You need to ditch that Irish fucker.
I like it.
Yeah. Just move him on. No, I like I said, the lyrics unfortunately weren't very good. So you were saying the good, the bad, or the ugly. So what's the ugly then? Is the album cover? Are we going that simple?
Well, I mean, I think the ugly, the album by itself. I mean, if you're gonna, it can stand on its own just because of what it's sold so far. I mean, you can't really get into that. I think that the ugly for me was it was beautiful and it was ugly at the same time, was the marketing campaign. They pushed this thing hard, and they pushed it about as hard as you can see it. I haven't seen a record pushed like this in a decade, probably since Death Magnetic, actually. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen any band that has put together just an onslaught of online, in-person. They're almost calling people up on the phone to tell them to buy the fucking record. It was unbelievable how this actually was able to cut through all of the fucking noise with the election and everything else with all the stuff. Like, this was still coming up in my feed, and they just blew it out of the water. And I think part of the problem I had with it was like doing a video for every single song. Oh God, really? Yeah. Like that stuff. It's like over the top, and it's like, by the way, you're Metallica. You don't have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
You can be a little more subtle with it. You don't want to do like Avenged Sevenfold. Oh, by the way, the record's out, but you want to do something. But I felt like the ugliest thing about it was like it was such a media push that it was painful in some cases. It felt desperate in some cases. And I don't think that they really needed to do that.
Well, we're looking a few weeks since the release, and I would say I'm probably still getting a message either every day or every 2 or 3 days. I'm getting notifications from YouTube that there's another Metallica video up for something. It's the making of the Spit Out the Bone video, And also to pick up something that you guys talked about when you were talking about the album as well is of course Metallica's new opening band, Hammett's Shit Ideas, with me on vocals. But yeah, there's a distinct lack of Kirk's ideas on it. But to be honest, whoever's idea it was that he should improvise solos, they should be taken out and shot in the fucking head. It's some of his worst work ever.
Well, and to me, what I wonder, not knowing the dynamic, how that works.
Yeah.
was this him? Was this almost like I'm going to protest this by doing the same solo for, was this his protest solos or something? Is it just phoning it in or something? I don't know, because it felt very flat in a lot of cases. I think that and I would like to, when you only give the main two dudes credit for writing all the songs, I think that kind of destroys some of the feeling that you're going to get from the guy that you're supposed to get the feeling from. I mean, Kirk Hammett, we're supposed to that's supposed to be what really brings it home is that solo. I mean, that's what did it on so many other albums before. And I feel like that's definitely missing. I wouldn't consider that an ugly. I consider that more of a bad, because it's okay. Like, he does a good job with it. It's just not great, it's sort of there. They kind of fall flat to me.
Well, I've said to a few other people, I feel like this album lacked a Rick Rubin. It lacked somebody with the balls to turn around to James and Lars and go, whilst you may think it's a good idea now to have Kirk improv his solos, we're not going to, because it's a shit idea, believe me.
Yeah.
They needed a Bob Rock. They needed somebody to say, like, okay, Kirk, what are you going to do for the solo? Right, that. Okay, right, now you're warmed up. Seriously, what are you going to play? Because you ain't playing that. And
I mean, to his credit, who is it? It's Fiddleman, right? It's Greg Fiddleman who did this one, and he's done he did one of my favorite records. Snakes for the Divine. He did High on Fire, Snakes for the Divine. I think he was like part of it, Metallica, but he wasn't like producer. I think this is one of the first ones that he really big produced. He also produced Lulu, I think.
Right. Okay.
If I remember right. So, I mean, is he going to tell him no?
Well, no, yeah. I totally agree, but I just think it's basically it's
you need somebody to do that from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not going to be fucking Peter Mensch or any of that lot, because basically it's just get an album out, because that means everybody's getting paid for a few more years. It's ultimately it's in no one's interest to drag the album out any longer. It's in no one's interest to say no. You need to take 4 of those songs off. It's not a double album, guys. You need somebody who can really. I mean, ultimately, it's only going to come down to the 4 of them. But you need somebody who's going to say, look, this is what you should do. This is what you need to do. But then again, of course, there's another point that comes back to the quality of the drumming on it, the quality of the leads on it, and everything else, which is, all 4 band members are signing off on that. So you can't blame Kirk for shit solos when the rest of the band have signed off on it and gone, "Ooh, that's great, Kirk."
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, everybody's got. Well, it also depends on the structure. I mean, it depends on whether or not they've got like the right to refuse that or not, or whatever. I mean, where does that stand? I mean, I think that the Rick Rubin factor on Death Magnetic probably was something that allowed them. Made it so that they had to he probably made them make more tough choices than they wanted to. And I think this feels like they played or that somebody like Fiddleman probably played along a little bit more than somebody like Rubin would. But I mean, I don't know that for a fact.
No. It's just all reports of it. You've got basically Lars and James both saying that Greg is a good guy to have between us. He's a good soundboard for us both, which is kind of like, so he was between the two of them, and as opposed to kind of somebody being, do you know what I mean, above that, saying, look, guys, this is not a double album. Funnily enough, when I had a chat with Brian Slagle, he said, I can tell you now, those guys are huge Maiden fans, and I can tell you, the only reason they'll be doing a double album is because Maiden did. He said it would not surprise me in the least.
I could believe that. I could definitely believe that. But I mean, still, when you're looking at it, does this a double album make? It's only like 80 minutes long. They call it a double record because they put it on 2 CDs or put it on two pieces of vinyl. But technically, it's really 12 songs.
Yeah.
So it's an album. It's just one album, just split up differently for packaging purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I would consider an ugly part of this, because that seems like a way to kind of not fuck over fans, but I mean, hey, by the way, we're going to charge $22 for this instead of 12, or we're going to, it's a way to kind of maximize your dollar out of the same amount of stuff that would be on one album.
Yeah, they're basically they're maximizing their revenue.
Yeah, totally. And if anybody knows how to do it, these guys do. The thing about Metallica that surprises me the most, and this I was thinking about when we were talking about doing this chat today, I was like, what really surprises me the most about this band over their history is that you think back to 2000, when they were the most hated people in the world for shutting down Napster and suing the shit out of Napster and all that stuff. Put out one of the worst metal records of all time. Saint Anger is by far one of the worst records that's ever been made, alongside Lulu. But these guys are still number one on the Billboard chart with their latest record, and are beloved, selling out stadiums, selling out everywhere they go. It's unbelievable the cult of personality that surrounds Metallica and how big they are. And it just kind of, I don't know. It's so weird to think about just how many missteps they've had over the years, but have still been able to come out clean on the other side. And I mean, this record is not great, but it's not, it's definitely not bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're still doing pretty good work. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, no,
I gotta hand it to the guys. They're still, they're pretty. I don't know any other band that can pull that shit off. Maiden's had to keep their shit as clean as they could possibly keep it over all these years. I mean, Bruce is a badass. He flies planes and is drug free. It's like, that's how they've stayed clean. These guys have fucked it up all over the place and are still on top. That's awesome.
True. But by the same token, I think you've got, I don't know. There is also a kind of, with Maiden. I mean, they've just put out one of, or arguably their best album.
Who?
Maiden. Book of Souls is fucking awesome.
What?
Oh, really? Oh, it doesn't get it doesn't do it for you then.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
No. Not even. I mean, and I pretty much love anything that Maiden does, right? I really do. And I mean, I'm gonna, from a fan perspective, I gotta say that, I like Speed of Light. I like a few of those things, but they suffer from a lot of the same things on this last album that they put out that Metallica suffers from here, whether it's, double record or whatever. But also talking about, like, I think lyrically, this is probably one of their weakest albums, with the exception of like Empire of the Clouds or something like that. But, it's honestly like,
wow,
it's pushing it.
Wow, it made into my top 5 last year. So I think before we start having our first fallout.
Well, I mean, no, and like I said, like my default records or my default albums that I go to when I like it, when I've been kicked in the nuts or whatever, is Iron Maiden. It's like that's what I listen to, hands down, more than anything else, still to this day. So I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I mean, and like I said, I did not like hate Book of Souls, but is this their best record? Yeah, that's a bold statement.
Also, you said they've kept it going a long time, and Bruce is drug free. I guess we're choosing to completely ignore the Blaze Bayley era.
Well, who?
Yeah, I thought that was the plan.
That's what? I don't even know which guy. I don't know what you're talking about. There's somebody in the middle there.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we're going to be talking about Paul Di'Anno too. So no.
Awesome. Well, look, Chuck, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really do appreciate it. That's all I need from you, sir.
Right on. I'm not sure if it was enlightening or anything like that, but hey,
Nothing. Look, I really, what I'm looking for is a cornucopia of opinions for people to listen to over the Christmas period, and right, some people they're going to be shouting at how much they disagree with one guy, and then they're going to be, agreeing with somebody else. So I'm just trying to get a really wide scale of people who've got an opinion on Metallica, and I guess that's the other thing. that sort of, plays into what you were saying about, I don't know how they've, managed to still be number one and all that, is the fact that as well is that you see so much heated discussion about this album as well. I mean, it's like, it's just, people will go to bat for it, and people will gang up on that person, It's
that's just the way of the world nowadays, man. If you've got a differing opinion, pile on.
I completely agree. But what I'm saying is that, Megadeth put out a shit album, which is not unheard of. Well, every other album,
right? Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely, yeah. And then and you get a few Dave fanboys going, no, it's great, but pretty much everyone going, nah, it's shit. And then, but a Metallica bring an album out, and it's just like, half the world thinks this, and half the world thinks it's like everybody piles in. Everybody's got an opinion.
But I think that the difference between Megadeth and Metallica is, I think Metallica fans, they really, really want this to be the best record that they've ever put out. Like, they want it more than anything else.
Yes.
Ever. They want this to be the best thing. And Megadeth fans are like, oh, we want a good record. But Metallica fans really want this to be the best thing ever. And that's what they're geared for. So when they get something that's a little less, they're not going to let themselves be disappointed. And I think that's just, it's kind of a tribute to Metallica, man. I mean, that's how dedicated their fans are. And I mean, you gotta give them that, dude. They are Metallica for a reason.
Yeah, no, and I've often said a band is only as good as its fans, and Metallica have the best fans. Simple as that.
Ferocious. Yes. I mean, ferocious.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because I don't think there's enough of that in heavy metal nowadays. I wish there were more people that were ferociously fans of bands that were at least a little smaller than Metallica. But and you find some, but. That's why if I find something I like to be voracious about it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm exactly the same. If I find something I like, I will be sharing it with my friends. I'll be shouting it from the rooftops. I'll be telling anyone who listens that they need to get, this album.
Like, I've been talking about that Astronoid for 8 months now. Like, hey, what are you listening to? Well, let me tell you about this one album. Check it out. All right, this is going to be great. I mean, it's like I'm standing on my soapbox and preaching about it. And that's how I get about everything that I love, So it's like, I don't know if that's good or bad or ugly, but so be it.
Well, no, I think plenty of people over the years have thanked me for, oh wow, I remember when you told me, yeah, that was great, that's wonderful, and it still freaks me out. I mean, on the back of Acid Rain's first album, I'm wearing a Descendants t-shirt. And the amount of people who've come up to me over the years and said, "Dude, you got me into the Descendants."
And that should feel good, though. It feels great when you find out that you turned somebody on to something. I love that feeling.
Absolutely, and especially when it's like, there's like, oh wow, they're one of my all-time favorite bands, and it means so much to me. You just think, wow, that's awesome. That really is awesome.
I mean, there's one thing that I figured out early on was that I suck at making music. So the best I can do is help people find the best of the best. And that's what been kind of my credo ever since I've, started in radio, was that, I want to make sure that my job is to turn you on to something that you may not have found before. And I get that all the time with people that, dude, yeah, as soon as I heard this, they're my favorite band. And I mean, that's like the biggest tribute I could possibly get.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and also there was interesting. I was listening to what you were saying there. There's a difference between you and Godless in there as well, because you realised you weren't any good as a musician, whereas Godless had to have the rest of the band tell him.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. I'm only kidding, Godless. I love you. I know you're listening. Fucking know you're listening. He is, isn't he? He's so listening.
Yeah, I actually have him in here on the other line. He's no. I can't do anything without his approval. That's why we had to change it up.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Chuck, I really appreciate your time, and we will do this again, especially when you guys have got a new home. It'd be cool to get you both on, and we'll do a little Skype round table and share the love.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate you. Having a no name on now. Now that we don't have an actual home anymore. So I appreciate you sinking this low to bring me on. And
no problem, no problem. I'm throwing some virtual coins in your virtual hat on the floor.
Woo, awesome.
Cool, man. Have a good day. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, dude.
Thanks, Howard.
Cheers, man.
All right.
Bye-bye. So is that a voice for radio, or is that a voice for fucking radio, podcast, you name it? What a top dude. I genuinely could have just chatted to him for hours. I'd love to get Chuck and Godless on the podcast once, just to actually do a Metal Sucks Is No More kind of, tribute podcast. It'd be great, because they are both so knowledgeable, and just great guests, and just really cool people as well. It's just so much of a loving at the moment, isn't it? But they're great, honestly. And I hope some of you were listeners to the Metal Sucks podcast, because it was a truly fucking awesome podcast. Anyway, look, wrapping up part 1, because this is going to come in 2 parts to you, because otherwise it would be fucking huge. It'd probably be like a 4.5 hour podcast, and there's no need for that. Nobody wants that. So let's get these into. I thought let's just do 2 nice bite-size chunks, and just to give you an idea, who's on the next episode 2 will feature Mark from Acid Rain, Mark Jackson, drummer. You will also hear from Jonathan, shrapnel drummer, and Nathan, shrapnel guitarist. And you'll also be hearing from Andy Pilkington of Very Metal Art. And last but by no means least, you will be hearing from the metal god that is Malcolm Dome. So yeah, basically the Rob Halford of heavy metal writers. So that's quite a rocking part 2 to come. But to finish off part 1, I hooked up on Skype with Joe from Gamma Bomb to find out what he thought of Hardwired. And again, some of this is about Metallica, some of this is just general chat. But please, whatever you do, enjoy.
Hey.
Oh, awesome.
Back to life, back to reality. Here we are.
Fucking hell. Right, what a struggle, but here we are.
Oh, man.
So you're sat there wearing your Acid Rain t-shirt.
Fuck yeah. Get into the spurt. I'm doing a bit of painting around the house,
You fucking ledge.
Yep.
You're just a bit of a legend, aren't you?
It's pretty. I presume this is. I guess the Joke's on Us t-shirt, was that supposed to be the cover of the EP or something? Was it?
Is it like the 4 of us as cartoon characters?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Actually, because I do you know what? Let me have a look at that, because it's on my phone. Fucking hell. Yes. I actually have. I have the. I've got the prototype of the cartoon. The very first shirt hanging on my wall at the moment.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a Acid Rain corner here. It's a bit of a fucking shrine, which is quite amusing, seeing as how you'd have a shrine for something that's dead, as it was for many years. And I've had to put I've got Plan of the Damned up there now, and it's kind of like, oh right, okay.
And so there's an Under One flag again as well, with Music for Nations. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
With Acid Rain on as well. Yeah, it's mental, isn't it? It's just, in fact,
crazy.
We're supposed to be that there's drinks happening later tonight at the Crowbar, but I'm not going to make it because I'll be up at the crack of dawn tomorrow to head down to Wales for the Christmas show. So such is life. Such is life. Anyway, mate, right, let's get stuck in before everything crashes again.
Yeah.
So this is a welcoming you to the podcast again. I think this makes you the first person to actually be on 3 times.
There you go, back for more.
Back for more, indeed. And this is going to be the sort of December/Christmas podcast, which has a distinct Metallica flavour / theme to it, where I'm trying to get as many different people as possible and just get their opinions on Hardwired ... but who's buying? So, dude, what are your feelings? Have you had much chance to play it? How big a role do Metallica play in your sort of thrash history?
Well, obviously I grew up as a gigantic Kill 'Em All fan, same as yourself, I'm sure. So yeah, obviously as you kind of get a bit older and more into the underground stuff, you probably have less time to kind of listen to all that kind of stuff. But I kind of grew up in the 90s, so my first Metallica album, proper, was Load. So I have a kind of soft spot for that kind of era of Metallica, Load, Garage Inc. and stuff. Okay. And there's actually kind of quite a lot of that sort of sound on Hardwired to, whatever it is, Hardwired.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's essentially for me. Yeah, that's a bad thing for me. But never mind. This is not about my opinion. So do you find yourself sort of gravitating towards you? Has it got a nice kind of this reminds me of the 90s feel?
Well, in the big scheme of things, nobody wants to be overly reminded of the 90s, and I am a huge fan of Load and Reload because it's better than Risk, I guess. But obviously everybody wants another Master of Puppets. But I think that Metallica have done pretty well in terms of trying to incorporate bits of they're obviously very comfortable with the Load kind of groovy riffs. And, some of the more upbeat and Justice for All kind of rhythms. But, I don't know, for an album that took 8 years, where are the riffs? Are there any riffs as good as any of the riffs on Master of Puppets on it?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I don't use my calling cards for Metallica, despite the fact that, I got into them on, Ride the Lightning, and they've ceased to be that band for many years for me. That's just too far ago. Occasionally you see flashes of brilliance, and I think from my point of view there's more flashes of brilliance on Death Magnetic than there is on Hardwired. But I would say great riffs on Spit Out the Bone. I really like Moth into Flame. I like Hardwired, the song. I mean, it's kind of dumb as fuck, but it works because Hetfield's swearing, and I love that.
Yeah, that was quite surprising to hear him swearing.
Yeah, but I've got to be honest. Other than that, I'd agree, because I've heard people say, sorry to cut across you there, but I've heard people say, oh, there's great riffs on this album, but it's very fucking sludgy for me.
I suppose if we talk about specifically the fast stuff like Hardwired and Spit Out the Bone, I think there's definitely a lack of, I don't know, everyone makes fun of Metallica for, E and, using E for absolutely everything, but it is, the album is probably about 60% open E notes,
Yeah.
And I guess maybe this is something that happens older bands, but they're really getting into kind of Maiden syndrome. I suppose this was here in Death Magnetic as well, where the intros just kind of go on and on and on,
Yeah, well, that's a good spot. I have found myself finding some of the... But having said that, I've also found it the other way, where I've engaged with the song up front and thought, oh, this is a good intro. And then the song never actually seems to go anywhere. It never delivers on the promise.
Yeah, I think in terms of, obviously, Spit Out the Bone and Hardwired are the kind of attempts to sort of, please, I guess, a lot of the sort of thrash fans and stuff, but some of the best stuff on the album is probably stuff like Now That We're Dead. They seem to be really comfortable in that kind of semi-groovy, Here Comes Revenge kind of mode, which is cool. But, obviously if you're looking for some speed thrash, you may look elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I get that. And they've kind of bookended the album with the two thrash songs, which is interesting. And funnily you mentioned Here Comes Revenge, because for me, I like it as a song, but unfortunately, I only like 5.5 minutes of the totally needless 7.5 minutes.
It's funny as well, isn't it? Because whenever you listen to a song like that, if you compare it to the next two songs, Am I Savage and Murder One, it makes Here Comes Revenge look like a masterpiece. There's just some songs on the album, especially that Motorhead tribute, where you're like, what were you thinking, guys? This is extremely, low quality stuff.
Well, I have to say, I think for me, you've just mentioned something there, which is Am I Savage, which I frankly struggle to listen to without laughing. It just doesn't work on any level for me, and the "Am I Savage" scratching at the door lyric just makes me want to fucking piss myself laughing. It's right up there.
Well, I guess that's probably, something we should probably talk about. Like, you're a lyricist, I write some lyrics as well. Like, we've probably both been extremely inspired in the past by Master of Puppets lyrics and things like that.
Oh,
but the lyrics on the album are particularly bad.
No, I like Hetfield, and I think he's a master lyric writer, and I think there's some fantastic lyrics on Death Magnetic. There really is some stunning lyrics on Death Magnetic, but on this album, I don't know. I can't believe I'm going to say it. It's really dumbed down.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do expect more from Hetfield, and I just.
Well, I think some of the best things.
Sorry,
go on ahead.
No, go on. Yeah, you go.
I was just going to say some of the best things on the album are his singing. I think the lyrics are generally pretty bad, but like there's a lot of songs like Confusion and Dream No More where some of the best things about it are his vocal melodies, and his voice is in great shape,
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, everyone's saying it's a great performance from Hetfield, and it is, and who knows, maybe the next album he'll be able to combine some great lyric writing a la Death Magnetic and some great vocal performances a la Hardwired. And I'll be happy, which of course is Metallica's, main agenda, to make me happy.
I guess, we should probably mention as well, musicianship on the album. I think maybe Lars's drumming has taken a step up slightly, or maybe Pro Tools has. I think that the bass is generally really cool. It's probably some of the best bass playing on a Metallica album in a long time.
Absolutely, yeah. Tick that box. I can't. I've got to admit, I'm not just jumping on the Lars bandwagon for the sake of it, but I still feel on this album, and I've said this before to somebody else, I still feel like the drums lag behind the album. They don't drive the songs. There's no songs where the drums are fucking driving it. You always feel like the guitars are in charge and the drums are following.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely a lot of parts on this album with double bass that seem fanciful, to say the least.
And also if you're gonna play an entire drum kit, then use it, because frankly, all he needs is a hi-hat, snare, and cymbals, and that smashing the hi-hat at the same time as the snare that he is absolutely in love with. Somebody should just hit him with a big stick every time he does that and say, "No, Lars! No, Lars! Bad Lars! Bad Lars! No, do that!" Because it's fucking horrible.
So what about the whole concept of the album as a double album? I think everyone would agree that the first half of the album, or the first 5 songs, are definitely its top-loaded album. They're the best songs in the album.
Yeah.
But did it deserve to be, a double album? Does it seem like one?
Well, funnily enough, Brian Slagle was on the podcast a couple of months ago, and he's very good friends with Metallica to this day, and he said, "I'll bet you any money that Metallica are putting a double album out because Maiden did, because they fucking absolutely worship Maiden."
Yeah, that would make sense.
And I have to say, it's vastly inferior. I mean, Book of Souls was one of my albums last year, and I'm still playing it. It's fucking fantastic. But very good point. It's top loaded. I mean, if Disc 2 is shit for me, and I think the only thing worth saving off it is maybe is Spit Out the Bone, which again I think people are jizzing off about Spit Out the Bone a bit too much. I've seen people saying it's the best thing they've done since Justice and stuff like that, and I just fail to see how that song is that good, because it's a great tune, don't get me wrong, but it's still got too much fat on it. It's still too fucking long.
Yeah, and the chorus isn't very good on it either. It's got a lot of problems.
Yes. Yeah, well, there you go. But no, I'm in agreement. I think it's a one disc album.
Yeah, and one of the things I guess that's probably worth mentioning is that Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are bands who can look back on their career and say, we're going to write a song exactly like Peace of Mind, or we're going to write a song exactly like, this era. and pull it off. Death or Glory sounds like it could be off one of those albums, whereas Metallica and Megadeth have never really been able to do that. It always seems as if they're trying to imitate their earlier work instead of just continue from it.
Well, it's interesting because now we're straying into an area that I'd like to ask you about, because I think a lot of people have said, and a lot of people have said that Hardwired sounds more genuine. It sounds more like Metallica, whereas Death Magnetic sounded contrived. Now, I'm in a strange position of kind of agreeing with that, but still preferring Death Magnetic. What's your take?
I'm not a big Death Magnetic fan. I know that there was a lot of hoopla about Rick Rubin making them return to their roots. I think that there's a lot of fast songs on Death Magnetic where it's like sped up versions of load riffs, and I think it's the same. This album kind of seems as if Metallica are more comfortable doing some mid-pace stuff without being told that you have to play fast.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not.
I think
I would absolutely love to see Metallica. Sorry, I was going to say I would absolutely love to see Metallica, make an album to the '80s formula. Where it was like fast opener, title track, slow brooding song, and then a ballad. The way a lot of those '80s albums have a similar kind of structure.
Well, you mean how Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets are incredibly fucking similar in that vein?
Yeah.
I to be honest, I mean, I stopped thinking of Metallica as a thrash band a long time ago, and I think, and I don't, I certainly don't view Death Magnetic as a thrash album.
No.
And I'm with this album. I think this album is basically Metallica are a heavy metal band who've got a few fast songs. I mean, on this particular album, 2 songs. But it just seems weird to me that with 2 thrash songs. And to kind of use apply a comedy law to this, your golden rules of comedy is like your strongest gags. You open with your strongest gag, you close with your strongest gag. That's and I just kind of wonder that if Metallica are aware that they feel that Hardwired is the best way of opening the album and Spit Out the Bone is the best way of closing the album, I just kind of wonder what the fuck happened in between.
Well, I think it's the classic thing, that you find bands like Megadeth doing it now as well, where release the thrashiest songs and then you get the best catchment of people. You're going to get people interested who haven't listened in a long time because you're advertising it as being a fast album, and then whenever people get it, they can discover otherwise. But like all those bands, Megadeth did that with the last album. All the initial songs were kind of fast ones, and then when the album came out, obviously people realised that kind of most of the album was just normal Megadeth trudgy crap.
So are you not a fan of Dystopia then?
No, like I think it's probably got it's got about 3 or 4 pretty good songs on it. I could probably say that about many of the Megadeth albums from the 2000s and stuff, but I guess it's probably very difficult to find any inspiration to want to write good songs when you have millions and millions of pounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else, isn't it? I mean, the greatest art comes through struggle. I must say that at least once a week. So when there's no more struggle, it's more difficult to write. But I think. Yes, and then you can knock this about all day, but then I listen to Book of Souls, and I think that's a fucking band, beyond the twilight of their career, and it's one of the best albums they've ever made. And
definitely album since If You Were.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's phenomenal, and I just think. I don't know, I'm always kind of like, with Metallica, I always feel like, it's one of those end-of-term reports, must try harder.
What do you think then? I guess we haven't talked about this, the cover art.
Do you know what? Again, I have long forgotten about Metallica actually having a decent fucking album cover. I mean, they had that fucking vagina on the front of Death Magnetic. They had Load was the beginning of the end. Do you know what I mean? Blood and Jizz. Well done, boys. You know, I don't know what you're trying to do there. And then being sat on the back looking like fucking junkyard at their their card table. So basically, I don't think I think the artwork to Hardwired. Here we go. What would I give it? My line on Hardwired, the cover art would be from the band that brought you Lulu. That's what I think of the album cover. It's
by 90s.
Well, it's very fucking Lars, isn't it? He loves his art. As we've seen, he loves selling it too. That's it. Yeah, it's. Do you know what? I'm going to pay it the ultimate disrespect. I don't like it. I don't dislike it. It's just nah.
It's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, I suppose you could probably say the same about the guitar solos. They're just there. It doesn't make you feel any way in particular, just because there's probably one bit on the entire album where I was like, oh, that solo kind of is going a bit somewhere, but
Well, it's funny you should say that, because every time I hear a guitar solo, I can picture Bob Rock sat at the control desk, shaking his head and saying, "Right, you've warmed up. Now play the solo."
Yeah.
And then in playing the solo, and Bob Rock just going, no, hey, Mr. Mr. fucking Guitar Hero, Mr. Hall of Fame, do better than that. And I've said this to other people as well. I feel the album suffers from a lack of a full-on producer. I think that album would have been better with Rick Rubin overseeing it. Someone somewhere being involved with the album and just saying, somebody with more power than Greg Fieldman to actually turn around to James and Lars and say, no, sorry guys. I
don't think that person exists. I know. Yeah.
It did on Death Magnetic, and it was Rick Rubin. They did what they were told.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to mention names here, but I know somebody who worked with Megadeth, and whenever they were
do I know him too?
Well, yeah, you might do. But whenever they were complaining to Mustaine about the quality of the songs on the album, Mustaine's response was to ring the record company and get them to give this person a bollocking. So there's definitely a kind of thing where it's like, listen, we're not paying you for your opinions on this music. Your job is just to, say everything's brilliant, and that is in time, even if it's not.
Well, I agree, and that person is missing, and it was Rick Rubin, and it was Bob Rock around the time of the Black Album, where I think Metallica was still hungry, so they'd never had anyone turn around and say, hey, how about playing that in, or how about putting a melody in here, and them going, well, how about you fucking and shutting up? Do you know what I mean? They were used to just going in and doing their thing, and they were still hungry then. They wanted to do something different, and they took shit from Bob Rock to make it work. And obviously they're not those guys anymore. They're not that age anymore. But I would have loved to. I'd love to have had a not even a contemporary producer, but just a voice in there of someone saying, guys, that's fucking average. You can do...
Lars Ulrich's dad is who you mean. They needed to get him to produce something.
I would delete it. Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe, but do you know what I mean? I just feel that there was too much respect, too much... both James and Lars have said that Greg Fieldman is a great guy to bounce off ideas and have in between them. And it's like, no, you don't need to be in between them. You need to be above them.
It's if you think about back to whenever Metallica made that documentary, they were working on an album that was, subsequently canned, that didn't release. But if you watch the documentary, the two guys who managed, Cliff Bernstein and that, they would have been over the moon to release anything with Metallica's music.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I don't think that those people give a crap about what they are. They're just like, whatever. If you guys just fart into a microphone, we're going to release that, and it'll be brilliant.
Do you know what? You've hit on a very important point there, and I've said this before. Metallica is a multi-million-dollar business, and there is 4 people at the top of that business, and it is in absolutely no one's interest to question the validity or quality of product that's coming out, just to get product out, because with product out means everybody keeps their jobs for a few more years.
That is 100%. Like, hundreds of people are employed by Metallica. It's the same, and I think this is kind of disgraceful, the situation with Motorhead over the last couple of years. Motorhead, employed many, many people, and I think probably they were on the road for a long time when it was probably in Lemmy's best health or best interest not to be on tour. But there's lots of people who depend on it to make a living, so it's easy to just say, "Oh yeah, let's keep this wagon rolling,"
Yeah, to be fair, he does strike me as the kind of person that went out the way he wanted to go out, and I think there's also a case for certainly band members saying, "For fucking hell's sake, Lemmy, look, we shouldn't be on the road. You should be at home," and him going, "Fuck it, I want to be on the road," and it's it's against all advice. He went ahead and did it anyway. But I genuinely don't know.
Neither do I. I saw them last year the year before at Glastonbury, and after he did Ace of Spades, he launched into Bomber and started singing Ace of Spades. When things like that happen, that's when you need to forget what management and everything's saying and just say, right, okay, never mind, going home. Yeah.
No, it's well, let's hope Metallica don't end up in that stage. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Although I've seen Lars commenting saying he's not sure they'll be able to play like the Batteries and the Master of Puppets of this world, when they get older. And I was thinking, well, to be fair, he's been doing a fucking horrendous job of playing those songs for quite a few years now.
Yeah, he should be playing an electric drum kit that he only has to kind of tap. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 huge Metallica fanboys in my band, but they are both kind of the opinion that, like, Jesus Christ, Lars, what you doing? Why, just up your game, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that would even remotely appeal. Like, I think I saw one of the things they played in New York recently, and his drumming was particularly bad. And that's why I mentioned, earlier we were talking about the drumming on the album. There's some very kind of suspect double bass parts near the ends of songs or rolls where you're like, why you even write that if if you can't play Battery, you're not going to be able to play this.
Yeah. So, well, look, just to finish off, because I'm trying to sort of do 25-minute bite-sized chats with everybody. So to finish off, and what's your kind of your feeling that you've taken away from Hardwired? I'm not going to ask you for marks out of 10.
Okay.
But entirely up to you if you want to do that. But what's your kind of takeaway from that album?
Well, I didn't really enjoy Death Magnetic, so I thought it was better than I was expecting it to be. I enjoyed the Justicey kind of stuff. I enjoyed some of the load stuff and some of the singing, but I thought there was way too much slow, boring riffs, way too many intros, and just 8 years of ideas. It's not so good. It's like waiting for The Godfather 3. Maybe not as bad as that, but
I know someone will really appreciate that that reference. That's cool, man. Well, look, Joe, thank you very much. You've completed the hat trick, the first person to 3 appearances.
Well, hey.
And I'm now going to switch this off, and we can have a proper chat. So,
right,
thanks a lot, mate.
No problem, man.
So there you go, folks. That is the end of part 1. That's disc 1. That is disc 1 of Rewired ... to disappoint. That is first disc 1, part 1. That is your first bit of Christmas heavy metal conversation. I'm going to leave it there. There's no song coming at the end here because we're just going to slip straight into part 2. That's going to be arriving between Christmas and New Year if my laptop hasn't given up the ghost by then. I would put more in it. I would try and do part 2 now, but there would be little point in that because I don't know. I just want to try and get this. Now I've finished this podcast, I've got to try and export the bastard, then upload it without the laptop crashing or just dying on me. So there you go. 2-part podcast, part 1 over, part 2 to come. I hope you're really enjoying whatever you're doing, wherever you are. I hope you're having a great Christmas or winter festival. And if you're not religious, well done. Good on you. You're not an idiot. No, that's extremely patronising. I do apologise. Look, whatever you do, just remember, buy presents, eat food, get drunk. If you don't drink, take some drugs. If you don't do drugs or drink, then, do someone else. Whatever it is that you do at Christmas. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Stay well, and part 2 will be coming up between Christmas and New Year. Speak to you soon, guys. Bye.